All right, a very good morning to you. Welcome along to Wednesday morning's OTB AM. There's a lot of speculation today about the future of Martin O'Neill, and it's coming from very well informed sources. Both the Telegraph and the Star have the expectation that they think that the Martin O'Neill era is drawing to a close in advance of the draw. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. We're also going to talk about Creed today. We're going to talk about Creed 2 is coming out in the cinemas. We want your Rocky memories, your favourite moment from the various Rocky movies so far, including Creed, so you can talk about the good stuff as well as just the schlocky stuff. And today, a bunch of us will sit down and decide who the Phillips Lighting Sports Manager of the Year is. If you'd like to make your nominations, I will consider every piece of evidence. How are you, Eoin?
Very well. Who is Phillips Manager of the Year? Joe Schmidt, obviously.
Well, we did reach the final in the World Cup of Hockey. Yeah. Gordon Elliott was the top trainer at Cheltenham with 8 winners and then won the Grand National as well. We had a League and Cup domestic double from potentially the future Ireland manager, Stephen Kenny. Jim Gavin reached perfection in the state of Gaelic football. Limerick, one of the biggest outsiders in the history of the hurling championship. I think, is that fair? Pretty close to it. So it's not a bad year.
No, it's a pretty tough one. It's a very tough one. Obviously, who is weighted mostly on the trainer or the manager rather than the elements at their disposal, rather than the financial implications.
The rowers, reaching an absolute peak.
Yeah. So, so to what extent are you judging it on the fact of the achievement, or to what extent are you judging it on the fact that this is clearly a coaching masterclass from somebody who has overachieved with the things at their disposal? So if you take Gordon Elliott's achievement, for example, it's fair enough, Gordon Elliott is clearly one of the best trainers this country's ever seen, but...
Does he have the best horses? Is that the point?
He's got Michael O'Leary's tools at his disposal. So does that diminish his achievement in your view?
No, it doesn't. I mean, it makes him great. Just the way you said that there made it sound a bit dirty, but...
No, it's just you, I think.
Anyway, it doesn't diminish them, right? But we're picking nits here. It's well,
you kind of got to pick nits when you've got a list that strong.
Yeah, so you're splitting hairs. Is the easiest way to go who were the biggest outsiders? What was the expectation for everybody? So Ireland,
so Graham Shaw automatically wins.
Well, pretty close to it. Or Graham Shaw.
Or John Kiley.
Yes. So Micheál Donoghue won last year. Is John Kiley's achievement any less than Micheál Donoghue's? It absolutely isn't. It's probably even greater considering where Limerick have come from and the famine that they've had to overcome. But
who are you voting for?
I don't know.
But you're having a meeting this afternoon.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So we get to decide.
Trash it out.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. We'll talk. I'm definitely willing to be swayed, and we'll be stealing everybody's good arguments for the meeting a little bit later on. We do want to talk about the future of the football team because it is suddenly in doubt. We've been speculating about this over the last couple of days. One thing that's not in doubt is the potential group next time the European Nations Cup of Leagues, League of Cups and Gatherings, the goblet of minor prestige that is the European Nations Cup, that England are going to win, and it's going to be very interesting. But Nathan tweeted out last night who our potential group might include in League C, coming to a stadium near you: Slovakia. I'd like to go to Slovakia. Turkey, depends on the political situation. Parts of Turkey could be absolutely amazing. You might feel a little unsafe. Northern Ireland, parts of Northern Ireland are beautiful, but you might feel unsafe. I'm joking, obviously, before you all get in touch. Israel. Oof, right. Hungary. Never been to Budapest. Greece, beautiful country. Bulgaria, also parts of Bulgaria supposed to be very nice, but then...
Yeah. Do you have an apartment there?
I have to get out of Sofia. I don't. Kusadasi. Kusadasi was Bulgaria, wasn't it?
I have no idea.
Or was that Turkey? Blank stares all around. Cyprus, also very nice if you get there at the right time of year.
And you're not Steve Staunton.
Bit of winter sunshine. Romania. Who was telling us about Romania? Malcolm O'Kelly was saying that they played rugby. Were you here for
yes.
Montenegro, supposed to be beautiful. Georgia.
Montenegro. Beautiful.
Is Georgia beautiful?
No.
You've been to Montenegro?
Yeah.
All right.
I've never been to Georgia though, but I can tell you it's not beautiful. I think we can pretty much chalk off Tbilisi as a place none of us want to go.
No. Belarus also, some historic issues there. Kosovo, I'd be interested in going to see Kosovo and what the aftermath of the war was like. And Macedonia is apparently very nice.
I'm liking the look of that list.
I mean, these are teams, that's our level. Macedonia, Cyprus.
Who cares about the level of the teams are those places good places to go on the beer is the question that we need to ask ourselves this morning. And for a good 70% of those places, the answer is yes. So I'm pretty confident about our draw potential of getting good on the beer locations to support the Republic of Ireland in 4 years' time.
There is the possibility that this is now supporting the Irish football team on away trips is like a boutique hipster thing to do.
Well, it certainly is, but it looks at that. Whatever a safe town in Turkey is, and whatever, I don't know, Bucharest, that's certainly better, but that's more appealing than Cardiff and Copenhagen to me. Or, sorry, Aarhus.
Yeah, they didn't even bother putting us in Copenhagen because we're so crap.
Yeah, that was pretty, as we've kind of well established, everybody hates playing us at this point. That will be the lowest of the low when we come away from Kosovo, and whoever Kosovo's star player is, would be like, these Irish players are horrible to play with. They're a scary bunch of people, or a scared bunch of people, I should say. But I'm liking to look at that list. Obviously, competitively, it's terrible that we're even in that bracket. But
that's like you're looking at that going, just don't give us Greece and Turkey, and we have a chance of getting out of that group.
I would say no matter who we're, bar Greece and Turkey, as you say, you would have to be topping that, and you get promotion once again. Like the thing is, whoever the new manager is, they've walked right into
the worst situation ever.
No, perfect situation.
Because expectations are so low. I mean...
But they will get promoted from that. Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane will get promoted from...
The next manager might not be around for that. So that is not after the European Championships qualifying or after the World Cup. So you'll have gone through 2 cycles. It's
in 4 years' time.
It's the manager after the next one who probably gets that group.
Well, the thing is, with the next manager, we're going to have another close shave for the next World Cup, because there is some suggestion that Qatar might actually be the first World Cup where they expand the teams.
To 48.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the one after that. But now FIFA are like,
hey, why wait?
More teams equals more money.
We had a good idea, we're just going to accelerate it.
Exactly. So it could be the case that Ireland have another heartbreakingly narrow loss to miss out on the next World Cup, and then they'll just have to keep them on for the next Nations League. So I think the next manager is going to be the person who takes us through to Kosovo or Macedonia.
6 years of Big Mick. That's what I see in our future.
I like the sound of that.
Right, here's what's coming up. Stephen Hendry's on the show today around about 8:45. An absolute legend of the game, spoken with Eoin in the wake of his new book coming out. We'll bring you sports news with Darren around about 8:35. Our breakfast menu running through some of the big talking points every morning here on OTB AM. Creed 2, going to talk about the Rocky era. Creed 2 obviously out in cinemas very soon. We'll play the new trailer, and we'll also talk about some of your favourite Rocky memories that have been coming in. The 2 lads jumping into the water and hugging kind of in their foppish way has been my favourite memory so far. Obviously, you know, the bit where he shouts Adrian is kind of iconic, and then there's the steps. But apart from that, what else have you got for us? Show us. Let's take you through the sports pages.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Yeah, so normally we would start with the broadsheets, but I think we should start with the tabloids today, because the Star has the bit of information that, so everybody has the information that Martin O'Neill is going to sit down with John Delaney in advance of the draw, which is in Dublin for the next European Championships. The draw for the next European Championship finals is going to be in Dublin, the groups. There will be some games here, and in advance of that, there's a sense that they're going to sit down, but it was like just a scheduled sit down, except there's a few people who have different information. Luke Edwards in the Telegraph has information on his piece, and on the back of the Star, Paul Lennon has information.
Yeah, we'll start with the Star, because it is the most striking headline this morning. Marty's over, says the headline. FAI want deal with O'Neill before Euros draw. Now, Paul Lennon is actually saying here that Martin O'Neill's exit as Ireland manager is going to be finalised before Sunday week's draw. And then you start to think to yourself, wait a minute, Martin O'Neill's exit. So he's got information here that the FAI has decided in principle that his 5-year reign should come to an end right here, right now. So they're going to meet.
Right now.
Exactly. As Fatboy Slim so ominously predicted for Martin O'Neill, it's going to happen in the very, very near future. So Martin O'Neill wants the support of the FAI board, or he wants to know that he's got the full support of the FAI board. That's what Neil O'Riordan is reporting this morning in The Sun. Dane for is the headline here. Martin's sweating. So he wants to know if he still enjoys the FAI's full support ahead of the Euro 2020 draw. So regardless of what angle you want to take on it, the thing that is clear this morning is that this situation is going to come to a head next week at the very latest.
And what's Luke Edwards saying?
Luke Edwards this morning in the Daily Telegraph, who's also got very good sources, particularly with Martin O'Neill, it seems, is reporting, wherever I can find it, if you just bear with me here while I find the Luke Edwards story.
Okay, so Nathan was tweeting it. Let me just
I don't think it's actually carried.
All right.
In the newspaper this morning.
Well, there you go. So at Telly Football, Martin O'Neill's 5-year reign as Ireland manager drawing to a close as he's called in for crunch talks with FAI. This was 7:03 a.m. and it's live on their website this morning. So,
but the thing is, the crunch talks are definitely happening. That's been reported widely this morning. And you've clearly just got a number of journalists with different sources within the FAI, and it's hard to decipher which exactly is the one that's going to pretend to truth over the next couple of days.
Martin O'Neill's 5-year reign as Republic of Ireland manager appeared to be at an end after he was summoned to an emergency meeting with the Football Association of Ireland Chief Executive John Delaney late on Tuesday night. O'Neill, who led Ireland out of the group stage of the European Championship for the first time, was just one game away from qualifying for the first World Cup since 2002 last year, has endured a torrid 2018. If that information is coming from Luke Edwards, you'd be very confident in that information. So it looks like things are hurtling forward at a rate of knots that we had not anticipated.
Yeah, definitely. So the meeting was we could have something today, who knows, because they were due to meet last night. O'Neill's battle is how they frame it on the back of the Irish Daily Mail. Threat of axe hanging over Ireland manager. You've got a couple of other stories as well. The Herald also leading with football, but it's stuff not good enough up front. Irish centre-back feels for strikers starved of supply, says Shane Duffy. I was saying this to Tommy earlier on and he completely disagrees with me, but you got a picture of Shane Duffy and Jack Conan side by side this morning. Brothers?
Brothers from another mother.
Yeah? No?
Well, they've got the same delta haircut and the same chisel jaw and the same hair. It's a bit more of a moustache from, but not, two rugged Irishmen.
Not my worst doppelganger shout.
No.
But not my best either. A couple of other stories from the tabloids that don't lead with Ireland's. The Mirror goes with Dear Young. City will have to pay record £75 million fee to land the Ajax and Holland star in January transfer window. They see him as a long-term replacement to Fernandinho. Paul O'Hare, though, as well on the back here, saying O'Neill to meet for a debrief with Dell. And a couple of the UK back pages, and we've already mentioned the Telegraph, but their lead is Carling back on duty. Former Grand Slam winning captain helps out England. And back at the Guardian is £40 a week to build the World Cup. The workers paid a pittance to deliver Qatar's 2022 dream. It's grim stuff. It's David Conn's special report in The Guardian. OK, so the Irish Times lead today is the Gordon Darcy column. What comes next will take care of itself. Ireland are serious contenders. New Zealand rugby will unearth unknown riches between now and the World Cup. He finishes. Remember, John Olomu only appeared in the weeks before the 95 tournament. Nahia Milner-Skudder was a global surprise in 2015. We know they need a blindside to live beside the legends of Jerry Collins and Jerome Kino, but that's for another time. Let's enjoy the afterglow. So obviously, he didn't get the memo from yesterday's show. There's no time to be enjoying afterglow. No post-coital cigarettes here. And then they've got the Qatar piece as well. Bullish O'Neill confident he can change Ireland's form is the headline on Emmett Malone's piece. So obviously he gave a briefing to the dailies after the game and they're all carrying that stuff, but it appears as if this morning things are moving on, at least according to the Star and the Telegraph. Ireland not my radar. Cullen shoots down talk of national role is the lead on the Examiner, and there's great pieces actually from all the GAA correspondents today, from Sean Moran in The Times, from Kieran Shannon in The Examiner, and also from Michael Foley in The Times Ireland edition about Wishy Fogarty and just the impact that he had on all their lives. They were all at various stages guests on Terrace Talk. I think Michael's is the kind of most intimate in terms of the relationship that they had, but yeah, just great pieces. Like, if you love GAA, if you love the noise and colour and passion of GAA people, and particularly football people, then Wishy kind of embodied that. And they've all had a chance to kind of sift through their own recollections of it and the impact that he had. And I would recommend all three of those pieces for you today. The notion that Ireland's not on the radar for Leo Cullen, it's like, I can understand that. I think Leo Cullen's got one of the best jobs in world rugby at the moment. Yeah, 100%. We'll come back to that in our breakfast menu very shortly, but that's reported in a couple of papers.
Yeah, O'Neill will discuss fate with the FAI. John Fallon has that story on the Times Ireland edition. And then Scotland beat Israel last night, so they're not in our group because they got promoted? Or did they get promoted from D to C?
They've gone from C to B.
Oh, yeah, okay, so Scots way ahead of us.
Well, you see, that's the thing. Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane might well have got us promoted from League C had we been down there. That's what I say. With the next manager is going to be in a very good position, or whoever the manager is in 4 years' time. It's like, well, we're going in the right direction.
We got
It's like,
promoted.
mate, you beat Macedonia and Kosovo.
Well, happy days. And everybody went on the piss for 3 days. Ireland won 3 strong options for every position. Murphy, so this is assistant coach Richie Murphy saying the depth at open side flanker is exactly what they need to head into the World Cup. O'Neill plans Delaney talks to clarify his Ireland future. Manager retains enthusiasm for the job after a challenging year, raises doubt about direction. And then the back page of the Racing Post is double tops. So they're lauding their own tipsters. Brilliant. At the last World Cup of Golf in 2016, Steve Palmer tipped the winners Denmark at 22-1 and the runners-up France at 33-1. And also, apparently, at last year's Hong Kong Open, he tipped the winner at 80-1 and the second place guy, who were both 80-1. Can he land another one too? What do you think he's gone for in terms of, is he going to go for like another 22-1 shot?
I'd imagine Lowry and Paul Dunne are big outsiders this week.
His top tip is Australia favourites at 9-2.
Who's representing them?
That's what happens to genius. Like, you come out of the blocks full of brio, piss and vinegar, and it's all brilliant. And then people are like, you're brilliant. And you're like, oh, I might just tip the favourites. Might just tip the favourites this time.
How are USA favourites? Or Australia favourites? Who's representing them? Leishman and somebody else? Is it?
Smith, yeah.
The story you haven't mentioned on the back of the Racing Post there is the other one. Who's favourites?
3 Lions favourites for Nations League title.
Imagine
Portugal.
the hype when they win the Nations League next summer.
Look, there was...
It's going to be amazing.
It won't be. There'll be hardly any hype. They'll appreciate that for a goblet of minor prestige, and they'll move on.
They played footballs coming home after they beat Croatia at the weekend.
Yeah, but like, football's coming home is now like post-ironic.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. That's what I'm saying. It's like the faux hype almost.
Larry and Dunn are 16-1 to win it. I mean, no, you're not having it.
Well, like, to give an educated opinion of that, I need to go through the 2 people representing every single country.
Yeah, fair point. Who's going to bother doing that? It's the World Cup of golf.
I'm telling you, Larry and Paul Dunne are good at golf.
They are, and I'd say they'll be good together.
Yeah, they probably will, actually. But I'm not sure. I'm not looking past the Aussies this week, Ger.
Fair enough, at 72 you can't. What have you got? You're done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, all right. So Creed 2 is in cinemas this week. On Friday. To celebrate, we've teamed up with Warner Brothers Pictures to give you a chance to win exclusive tickets to a special preview screening on the 28th of November at the Lighthouse Cinema from 6:30. So that is this day week. To be in with a chance of winning, just send us your favourite Rocky moment from across the franchise. Winners will be announced before the end of the show this morning. So if you're watching this on repeat, then get out of bed early. Stick us on at 7:45. Go on to youtube.com/offtheball or twitter.com/offtheball or facebook.com/offtheball and hit the live button. Or better still, subscribe, and you don't even have to do anything. We just ping a little message to you and you click and you go, oh, the lads are there. They're up and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. A little bit croaky this morning for whatever reason. As we mentioned, Creed 2 is released next Friday, November the 30th. Here's the trailer.
If we don't do what we love, then we wouldn't exist.
It's time, kid.
It's like nothing really matters to him right now, including me.
You gotta think real hard about this. So you got people that need you now.
I'm taking the fight.
Victor Drago, son of Ivan Drago, who infamously killed Apollo Creed, appeared today to issue a challenge to Adonis Creed.
Don't do this.
I ain't got a choice.
That's the same thing your father said, and he died right here in my hands. That kid was raised in hate. It's dangerous. He broke things in me that ain't never been fixed. It ain't worth it.
It's not just us anymore, Dick.
I want to rewrite history.
If you want to fight this man, that's your business. But don't pretend this is about your father.
This here is all about my wife, my kids, the life that I live. Through the night, I was his. It was right what I did. My ups and downs, my slips, my falls, my trials and tribulations, my heart, my balls.
This won't be the end of me. Or you. It can't be, because we're a team.
You know what you're fighting for.
Round after round, you learn more about yourself. And when I stepped in that ring, it wasn't all about me.
Oh, not great timing there, Eoin Drago. Who's going to win? Who's going to win?
Like, I'm not sure this is the saddest thing I've ever witnessed. The glee with which you're operating those.
Here, come on. You go through a period where, like, oh, this is terrible, and then your kids start playing with stuff, and you're like, that looks like a lot of fun. I'm telling you.
Do your kids play with Rocky toys?
No, I haven't got them Rocky toys yet, but I will now.
That's.
I might just pocket these later. I can't believe we opened these from the boxes. That was a schoolboy error on our part.
Looking at that, looking at the trailer for Creed 2.
You just can't get good toys these days. These are like cheap imports from wherever they make cheap imports these days.
Are you sure about that? I thought they were like originals that we paid a lot of money for.
Yeah, I'd say they probably were, yeah.
Hot take, Creed could become a better sporting franchise. If you keep it separate from the original Rocky, 4 Rocky movies, it could become better than the original Rockies.
Well, I think that the original Rocky was a good film, right?
Yeah.
And then
2
after
and 3
that
were shit.
After that, they like, and
4 is okay.
I think 4 just has a reputation because it's like peak Cold War, and you know, Dolph Lundgren looks pretty good in the scenes, and he's doping. It's like, well, the Americans never dope.
So it's not a hot take at all, is what you're trying to tell me, is that
no, I'd say
Creed is a better franchise already than the Rocky franchise?
Yeah, and so it's like, on the face of it, it's like, oh, why don't we just reanimate Drago's kid and make it so there's this revenge thing? And you would say that that's like complete bullshit, that would never happen in real life, but obviously the sons of famous boxers are fighting all the bloody time now. You've got Chris Eubank Jr., you've got Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., there's like this thing, it has become a thing where like the kids of fighters end up being fighters.
Yeah, so like I'm not sure if they've actually kind of looked at the reality and they'd be like, that's a good theme, or they've actually kind of run along with the sons at the end. They're like, oh, it happens in real life as well, so you know, we're based on the idea of fact here.
Yeah, I would like to see Clubber Lang versus Eoin Drago.
The fight that never happened, the fight we've all been crying out for, unless their sons can
that's perfect, yeah. So that means Drago's son has to kill Creed.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen because Creed's the star.
But spoiler alert.
Well, I mean, maybe it does happen. Who knows? Did they not finish the end of the first one like in the middle of a fight? So was there not something left hanging?
Yeah, there was, as far as I recall. But I've only seen it once when it actually came out. And to be honest with you, I don't actually remember that much about it, except for the fact that it was really good.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was pretty good as well. But I watched it on a screener. So I can't remember the end that well.
Right, well, neither can I. So we're going to end up speculating about the ending of a movie that's...
the bit when you look to your producer and he goes, that's exactly what you want. Right, so Conor Whelan is our first entry. I know it's obvious, but the Philadelphia step scene is great. I ran those steps back in '91 on the J1. Good times. Travelled down from New York to watch some baseball. I've been hooked ever since. It turns out New York to Philly is not that bad. It's like 2.5 hours in a car. Totally worth doing. Philly, a very nice city, and lots of good sport, obviously. Although this year it turns out the Eagles are pretty crap. But yeah, I'd like to go and walk slowly, amble, meander up those steps.
I think was the Philadelphia Marathon on at the weekend?
Oh yeah.
So like, if you're a marathon runner, imagine the queue for like the boyfriends of Instagram to hang by and record you running up those steps. Just the queue. It's like 100 people. It's like, I've got to record this after they achieve the marathon. Running up the steps is obviously the next port of call. Like, it's, you say it's a great city. Is it really? Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it just gets a bit of a bad rap sometimes, doesn't it?
Oh no, well, Anthony Bourdain did a weekend. He's got those like short flyovers, and it looks class. Okay, so let's stick up some of the images that we have, some of the suggestions that we have. Joe O'Neill says possibly the greatest moment of macho male bonding in the history of cinema. Unfortunately, the GIF's not working there, but this is absolutely amazing. I don't know, like what? I wonder, was what the script says. Like, what's the description in the script of the two lads, fully clothed, but like dry riding in the water. It's like the most homoerotic moment in the history of homoeroticism.
I think the script says bond in a macho way, and bond in a macho way they did.
Yeah, okay, so next.
It's like a kind of a Baywatch, but not.
Rocky IV, the training montage with Hearts on Fire. Can you give me a blast of Hearts on Fire?
No. I've got no idea. That montage rings 0 bells for me this morning. Despite the fact that I said a few moments ago that Rocky IV is actually quite good. Maybe it's because I don't actually remember anything about the movie that I'm left with a lasting, lingering memory that it is actually quite good.
In my head, it's like the beginning and end of all montages. Like, it's the montage that gets satirised in Team America World's Police. It's a montage, the song. This is exactly what you would expect, like training. And then at the end of it, he's like gone from being flubby to, well, I'm going to go and take on the Russian dope fiend.
It's a montage that inspires life by the sounds of things. If I could only just remember what actually happens in it. He just bulks up, basically. It's one way of actually saying
He gets fit.
Yeah.
He trains. He shows his craft, his dedication.
Is that what the people who produce Rocky kind of come up with when it's like, oh, this movie is 3.5 hours long? It's like, well, we can cut out half an hour here.
Yeah.
Just like fast forward it and put on an emotional song.
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly.
It's a great directorial move.
It's like that scene in Casino where they're doing cocaine from the inside of the giant straw. So the directors of the 1980s movies would like film for months and months, and then the editors would come in and go, well, cut. The drug-fueled 1980s movies, there's a lot of montages in it to get the film screening time back down. Some more tweets for you. When the Ultimate Male fought the Ultimate Meatball, the original Maymac. So that is Hulk Hogan holding up Rocky. Which one is this? Is this 2? I want to say this is like 2 or 3. 3. So his career has obviously gone off the boil. You know, is the wife still with him? Is he still a dutiful husband? Is he a father at this point? Like, proper father to his kids?
No, I don't think so. Rocky 3?
Yeah. Is he bad? He's gone bad.
I think so, yeah.
He's chasing the money.
Yeah. Like Rocky 1 and 2 is peak romance. Rocky 3 is kind of like life ain't always beautiful for Rocky.
For every up there's a down.
Exactly. And Rocky 3 taught us all that life lesson.
Okay, so next one for us. How many more have we got? We got 2 more of these. It's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. It's like...
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
I hate slagging Sylvester Stallone, but that sounds like what the voice you would hear if you pushed a button on the back of an action figure and there was like a robotic voice that came out.
Let's push the figure. Let's push the button and hear it.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you wanna be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that.
Wow. That's parenting right there. It is also the pre-Instagram life lessons day. Now, if you were making that, you would like cut it to 2 things that you can put on an Instagram post with a picture and turn into a marketing thing that gets like 1 million likes.
I'm pretty sure the image that was sent in was just copied and pasted from an Instagram account, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, but it's no good.
It's like something you'd see on Motivation Mafia or something like that.
Yeah, but now if you were like writing the film, you'd be like, how do I end up in Motivation Mafia? Right?
Yeah.
They would
that's true.
They would be writing to the medium.
Ahead of their time in more ways than one. It wasn't just a crap, concise script.
A couple more quick, short audio clips for you, I think is, are we going to do Catch the Chicken?
Yeah. You catch this thing, you can catch grease lightning. Ready?
Yeah, well, I'd rather eat it than chase it. It ain't very mature,
listen,
but if you say
well,
so.
neither are you very mature. Now listen, get this thing.
A fighter ain't a farmer.
Come on, go on and get him! Get him!
Okay, I remember that. I actually never saw Rocky Balboa.
Yeah, I saw it in the cinema at the time. It was...
Muck?
Not muck, definitely not muck. Well, it's hard to know with the Rocky films how muck they are sometimes.
Well, they're all muck, right?
Well, that's
muck?
That's my deep suspicion. My deep suspicion is that Rocky just isn't that good.
No, the first one's not bad. But, like, they're all shite.
Like, that's what I don't agree with you often, but I'm sorry, like, there is a deep suspicion in my head that Rocky just isn't that good.
But aren't you, like...
But you're not allowed to say it.
Well, you can. You can totally say this is crap, but I really enjoy the crapness of it, no? Like, it's one of those bits where you get to enjoy the crapness.
Well, like, there is certainly a reason why you've seen it time and time again.
I mean, it's like wrestling.
Yeah.
Wrestling is crap. But
well, some of the storylines in wrestling are pretty good.
A lot of people enjoy them. I mean, they're not really.
Like, Come Down With Me is crap and a lot of people enjoy it in that sort of way.
Yeah, I mean, Come Down With Me is like performance. The performative...
It's a reality TV show. It's real to me.
And you see the real champion.
What's the structure? Somebody sent for us in. Let him breathe, for God's sake.
What started out as a joke has turned out to be a disaster.
Creed appears to be in very serious condition.
The man alive.
If he dies, he dies.
If he dies, he dies. What started out as a joke? Oh, look at you. If he dies, he dies. It's you and Tony.
Yeah, that's it. That's the voice I hear in my head.
This is Tony McGregor, and this is Eoin.
Yes, thank you. I will absolutely take Clubber Lang as the comparison you want to make with me, 100%.
He's Tony.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm still pretty happy with being Clubber Lang.
Oh, sorry.
In
yeah,
general.
He just knocked you off there.
I know, but I'm focusing on the positives here. Maybe the thing with Rocky is just that it's impossible to make a good sports film that actually involves a lot of action. As in, I would say that the best sports film ever made is Moneyball. But that's all boardrooms and
controversial dialogue
and a lack of actual sport.
That helps. I mean, also baseball, that's not really a sport.
Well, talk about stirring the pot this morning. I just think that if you're actually going to get in the ring and try and simulate real sport, it's very, very tough.
Yeah, it's really hard. And that's why you've got to stylize it, which is what they do in Raging Bull.
Yeah.
And there's a few other ones that's quite highly stylized. They did good football in The Miracle of Bern. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's the story of the 1954 World Cup. It's really, really good. Definitely worth watching. There's like a schlocky romance story. I mean, it's like German prisoners of war coming home after the war and bonding with their kids through the medium of the World Cup, which it turns out the Germans were doping in to try and win. Where they also like broke the leg of Frank Puskás in one of the games and he had to play in the final and they beat him. So, you know, the plucky underdog of German football rebirth after the war, but it's brilliantly told.
In the first Creed, in fairness, they managed to completely surpass anything that the Rocky films, in my opinion, managed to do in terms of realism. But because he had like Tony Bellew in it, and
he got knocked out in one of the scenes. Does Creed? Did he get knocked out in filming?
Yes, that is the story. He was on the show. He told that story. He certainly sustained a lot of actual real damage. Maybe it's just the way things have moved. Things have just got more sophisticated in recent years that they couldn't actually hide the crapness in the 80s.
Yeah, I was watching The Godfather Part 1 and the fight scene where Sonny's beating up his scumbag brother-in-law in the street. It was so schlocky. Like, it was so badly done. You're like, I mean, why did he fall over? You didn't actually hit him. But still, you know, you're going to suspend your disbelief, Eoin. There's not that much fighting in Rocky, though, at all, says Tommy with an exclamation mark and 2 questions.
That's probably why it's the best one. He talks about Rocky 1.
Michal Ní Shakis, I think, says, my favourite scene where there's community support as Rocky runs through the street training. What a beautiful way of putting it. It's like, it's such a nice, gentle way of putting it. And, you know, you're right. It's like an amazing, heart-tugging, emotional moment. John Kiley, Sports Manager of the Year. It's a good shout. It's hard to, you know, like, the achievement of the thing.
Can you whittle your list down to 4 and we'll put up a Twitter poll? Give us that at least. Brian O'Driscoll sat here last day and revealed to you he was going to vote for World Rugby Player of the Year. You can at least give us the top 4.
He made his mind up, and that was like... so, obviously, Joe Schmidt's in it. I mean, Jim Gavin's in it. John Kiley's in it. Stephen Kenny's in it.
What about Graham Shaw and Gordon Elliott?
Graham Shaw and Gordon Elliott are in it.
You've got to pick 4. You just listed the short list.
My favourite Rocky moment is the speech Rocky gives to his kid in Rocky Balboa about life. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. That's Aidan McCabe. We just played that. Wayne Ryan says, lads, apart from Jaws, where the music is so iconic, the Rocky movies were all about the montages and the soundtracks. Even now, the young lads train to the motivation music, so any training/music scenes.
I think they've gone with Kendrick for Creed 2. I'm not sure is it actually throughout the film, but certainly it's certainly on the trailer. And
it's all Kendrick, is it?
That's what I don't know.
He soundtracked that bit.
Yeah. Well, no, not soundtracked it. They just took a Kendrick song and put it on the trailer.
So it's not original?
No. Has all the Rocky music been original throughout the
Eye of the Tiger wasn't.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know.
Rocky 4 training montage in Russia. The GOAT. Hashtag OTB AM, says Sean. Fergal O'Keefe says, I ran those steps with my J1. Did that one, sorry. Tony Dorgan, Rocky Balboa. The scene pre-fight where Rocky meets Mason and quips about the 80s. A lot of love for Rocky Balboa. Is this recency bias?
It might be. If there was recency bias, like are we including Creed in this? If it was recency bias, then Creed is a far superior movie to Rocky Balboa, in my view.
Leonard Tobin says, Rocky punching the carcass in the first is classic old school boxing training. This is true. That's another montage, isn't it? That's in the middle of a montage.
No,
steps,
he brings him into the butcher's, into the back room, and he's like, punch that piece of meat, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. There's definitely bits later on where the steps become I would have said so. The best scene in all the Rocky movies is the Happy Birthday Paulie from the high-tech robot that Rocky gets his bum brother-in-law in Rocky 4. Soundtrack alone from that scene is legendary. Jesus, Niall, that is brilliant memory. Unfortunately, it's not part of my memory bank.
No, it sounds hilarious though, and it kind of sounds like a tongue-in-cheek sort of great Rocky moment.
The high-tech robot that he gets his bum brother-in-law. That's like 8 words there to make you go, I want to see that. That's the start of a YouTube hole, if ever there was one. Craig Lyons says the best scene has to be the end of the 4th movie, when Rocky's post-fight interview single-handedly brings an end to communism in the Cold War, and that all worked out perfectly. Dara O'Toole says, best sports film has to be The Mighty Ducks. We have opened a can of worms with the best sports film. We will get to that again. Moneyball is a weird shout.
Why is it a weird shout?
That tells you a lot about
Why is it a weird shout?
The inner landscape of Owens.
Why is it a weird shout?
It's a weird shout.
How is it a weird shout?
It's not really a sports movie.
Yes, it is.
Come on.
You said it's about baseball.
Yeah. Okay, so are we moving on to the breakfast menu? This is the two lads from the...
Yes, let's just move on to the breakfast menu. It's up there, right beside you.
Martin O'Neill's ruled out.
Yeah.
Leo staying put. GAA Central Council. That's always a hot topic. The rumour mill and drunk curlers. The drunk curlers is probably where we should start. We're going to start with Martin O'Neill. So Martin O'Neill's ruled out, we had assumed, was going to be at the end of the qualifying campaign before any potential playoff for the European Championships, that he was going to be given that opportunity through the campaign. But the question had been posed, and I think Nathan was probably the first person that you heard posing it, is there value for the FAI in having a new manager who fills the stadium and brings a sense of excitement and wonder, and so therefore it gets between 35 and 45,000 paying customers to the Aviva for the home games for the qualifying campaign, versus whatever it costs to pay Martin O'Neill up at this point? Is there a value for the FAI? What's the break-even point on that, and what's the risk-reward? Is it possible that Martin O'Neill can turn this around with this current squad of players and qualify through whatever draw he gets for the European Championships?
Or maybe there's a non-financial value to getting rid of Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane. Maybe, well, not maybe, it was definitely reported, I think Balls.ie had it the last day, that there was confiscation of Delaney out banners before the game in Aarhus at the weekend, or 2 nights ago. So it becomes a point where the FAI are looking to try and save their own reputations here, that people have started to turn to them rather than turn to the management or the players in terms of the blame game. So if they want to be seen to act, then they can do something here, and it doesn't matter really about the financial implications. They need to be seen to do a good job, and I'm sure that they want to do a good job. I'm sure they want the Irish national men's team to actually succeed in the future. So I think that's where the reward is. I think really that kind of...
Just the right decision.
The right decision. The right thing to do here, whatever they think would bring success. Exactly. To whatever they feel will be a material impact positively on the Irish football team, then they need to make that decision. And if it's going to cost them €4 million, it's still a huge amount of money. But if it's going to cost them €4 million, it probably is worth that.
You can't really make those decisions though, because that's money you don't have. Whereas at least you know that Martin O'Neill will do the job that he's always done over the next while. Like, he will make the team very hard to beat in the next qualifying campaign. It could be 6-0 all draws. Like, it could easily be 6-0 all draws in whatever group we get into, right? And so there is a possibility that regardless of what group we get in, we'll still be in with a shout of qualification halfway through. So the risk reward becomes an issue, and the money becomes an issue.
Of course it does. But like you said it here, I don't think we know how big that risk reward is going to be until Sunday week, until we actually see who's in our group.
Yeah.
Because it's not, to be honest, for me, it's like not a risk at all if it's Germany and France we get. It's like...
Do you make the decision now?
Well, you see, the thing, I don't see the point of making the decision now as opposed to waiting just 10 days. Like, just wait and see who we've got. I think it makes total sense just to make sure it's not.
Okay, well, let's make the decision. Let's pause the decision, and then what triggers your decision after the group is made?
Well, I suppose if you look at it, it's an incredibly tough draw. You're on a kind of... There's nothing really up for grabs in the automatic qualification places. You're looking at the automatic qualification places as a training camp almost for the Nations League playoffs. Now, the thing is, maybe that equates to the perfect reason to get rid of Martin O'Neill. That if you want the manager in tow for this training camp, as I say, for the Nations League playoffs, then you want that person in charge throughout. Then if you look at it on the other hand, if it's a really easy group, and it's like, well, we've got a very good chance of getting the second seed here, are you still trusting Martin O'Neill to do that? And maybe the answer to both of those questions is no, you wouldn't trust Martin O'Neill to do either of them. And maybe John Delaney's right to sit down with him now and say, listen, it's all over, if that's what the case is.
I think, though, that if you're O'Neill, right, just to play this potential meeting that either has happened or is going to happen out, that you're having a conversation saying, well, my first choice midfield's gone for the last year, Declan Rice gone, you know, so I'm building around him and James McCarthy, and I'm trying to find new people, but there's been a bunch of retirements. So we have the bones and the genesis of a team. We have our first choice goalkeeper. Seamus Coleman is back. I mean, if Coleman hadn't had that horrific injury, who knows what happens? It's not beyond the bounds of possibility that we score in Denmark in the playoff. Who knows, right? That we've blooded a bunch of players, that we have an idea of what our squad is now, and that it was only the European Nations League.
Yeah, there's truth in that. There is also the argument, which I'm sure Martin O'Neill will be making, that who have we lost to that is a weaker team than us?
I mean...
Is that a defeatist attitude? Kind of is.
How do we do against Northern Ireland? You know, granted that's a friendly, but what did we do?
Didn't lose the game.
What did we do against Wales, who had a team of kids?
I think Wales and Denmark are better teams than us at the moment.
They're not much better.
I think, well, to be fair, if you look at Ryan Giggs' record so far, it's nothing spectacular. It's spectacular against Ireland and mediocre against the rest. So there is an argument to be made there. Denmark are a better team than us, and he will be making that argument that really the one, you could possibly put it like this, one moment where we really, really underachieved was going to Georgia and not coming away with 3 points. And even then, that wasn't the most outrageous result in the world. They're the arguments he'll be putting forward, that how desperate has it really been? The conversation around Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane has been that this is desperate, that these people are completely falling flat on their face and Irish football is completely underachieving at the moment. And he might be making the argument that actually, if you look at a result-by-result basis here, we're not really. Now, in my view, I think that that's not true at all. I think we should be better than getting beaten 5-1 to Denmark in Dublin and 4-1 to Wales. I think we're certainly better than those results that we've shown, and there is kind of underachievement in terms of our side of play, and it's not all about results. But I'm sure Martin O'Neill will be putting his case forward strongly in the other direction.
A correction from Nathan Murphy this morning that the next Nations League is actually in autumn 2020, but no notion yet whether or not it's going to be linked to qualification for the World Cup. Unlikely as it stands.
Right. I did not know that. So 2 years' time we get more 2 years' time Kosovo. Book your flights.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We got a Kosovo.
Well, 100%. There's a documentary to be made in an Irish fan's trip to Kosovo. That's really made my morning now that the Nations League is back in 2 years' time. Don't have to wait 4 years. 2020, what a year.
I feel bad about the willful ignorance I've cultivated around the Nations League. I should have embraced this more.
Well, kind of. It has also been a fairly miserable experience.
It's been a very miserable experience. What's next on our breakfast menu this morning? So Leo staying put. This is obviously at the press day yesterday. Leo Cullen asked about the Ireland job and Joe Schmidt potentially moving on. Leo says he hasn't thought about it yet.
No, I think he kind of speak out of turn to say, oh yeah, it's definitely something I'm interested in, or I want the job, because Joe Schmidt's future is still very much up in the air. The thing is, what happens next month, or by the end of this month really, there's only about 10, 12 days left in the month when Joe Schmidt makes his decision. And say if Joe Schmidt elects to leave and the IRFU decides, we want Stuart Lancaster involved with the Ireland rugby team, how does that change the dynamic at Leinster at that point? Do they then bring in somebody to help Leo Cullen along, the kind of lack of ego that Leo Cullen showed in terms of bringing Stuart Lancaster in? Do they then replace that role with a like-for-like person in a like-for-like role? Or does Leo Cullen take on more of a responsibility? Or conversely, do they just substitute the team that's working so well at Leinster and just put him right into the Ireland camp? And then you're kind of screwing over Andy Farrell to a certain extent. I don't know, but it seems that there's like 3 potential players here for 2 roles maybe at the top of the Irish rugby team, and that is between Andy Farrell, Stuart Lancaster and Leo Cullen, and that is if Joe Schmidt leaves.
Yeah, or...
The thing is, you've got another year as well of Leo Cullen's development.
Yeah, or like... you've got somebody in the perfect situation at the moment, and Leo Cullen can, at any point in the future, on the back of the body of work that he's putting together at Leinster, say, yeah, now I'm ready for the Ireland job. Like, after the next World Cup if he wants. Because he's in such a situation where he has shown the ability to look outside the confines of a situation which was going really badly, seek help in the form of Graham Hendry first, and then in the form of Stuart Lancaster. And you're like, okay, clearly he's soaking up all the information and knowledge, but it's very early on in his coaching career at this stage. In 4 years' time, like, at that point, he could be the best coach in world rugby if he continues on this path of development.
Say if Leo Cullen, I accept what you say, say if Leo Cullen was the man for the job in the view of the IRFU. Right now, let's just say he's the number 1 candidate. But you've got Lancaster and Andy Farrell also lingering around at a similar enough level. Looking at this cynically, would the IRFU not be smarter to give the job to Stuart Lancaster and make sure Andy Farrell is in there as well? And if Leo Cullen was interested, say, bide your time, we'll get to you eventually, because of the fact that he's Irish, because of the fact that Stuart Lancaster and Andy Farrell perhaps have more international appeal, that other rugby federations around the world may say, well, those guys aren't Irish, they might not be married to the idea of staying within the IRFU system for that long, we're going to go and poach them. So the IRFU are being proactive in trying to stop that and trying to lock those guys down, that they just kind of leave Leo Cullen there. I wonder, looking at it cynically, if that could be a route that might be taken.
Why is it cynical?
Because you're trying to keep everybody in the system. You're kind of downplaying Leo Cullen's chances because of the fact that he's Irish, because of the fact that he's probably more loyal to the IRFU. I'm not saying that Stuart Lancaster and Andy Farrell are not loyal to the IRFU. I'm sure they are.
But if you look at his coaching journey, he's been a head coach for 3 seasons this stage, whereas like Stuart Lancaster has taken England to a World Cup. Andy Farrell has been the defence coach for both the Lions and for Ireland. So his international rugby experience at the moment is far lesser than the other.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, but as I said before that, I said just pretend that he is the man for the job. Right. And like, I wonder if that could be something, if that could be a roadblock down the line.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Don't think so. I think down the line, in 4 years' time, no. I think right now, if you've got all these available resources, use the resources the best way you can, no?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think Andy Farrell is the guy who gets the job if Joe Schmidt leaves at the end of the month.
I don't know. I think that...
You've also got to think about what happens in 12 months' time.
Yeah, I think Stuart Lancaster is definitely... I don't know. I mean, can you get the 2 of them to work together again? That'd be great. Like, that's the ideal scenario, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Who gets the head coach job is the big question.
I mean, maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't.
And do they make a call on it now is the thing. Like, Joe Schmidt has talked about a succession plan that needs to be in place before he leaves.
Well, Nucifora has. I haven't heard Schmidt talk about it.
Joe Schmidt has spoken about it.
Okay.
He says that I'm not going to leave Ireland in a situation where they're not capable of going on to the next level.
Okay, so drunk curlers, rumour mill and Central Council. What's the Central Council story this morning, Eoin?
Central Council this week, they're deciding on a couple of big ideas, one of them being Roscommon, who wants to set up this central delegation of fixture planning, which obviously makes loads of sense. And then the other one is a Tier 2 championship, which the CPA are vehemently opposed to. So the CPA, big time, are supporting the Roscommon proposal that establishes a select committee to conduct an overall review, but they're completely against this Tier 2 proposal. They're witnessing a number of alarming developments. Micheál Briody, the head of the CPA, said yesterday, he says that the changes that are being brought to the table as yet could start another incremental change that could sound a death knell for summer club football, which is already practically extinct. I'm not sure how you can sound another death knell for something that's already practically extinct. Basically, this weekend, if we're going to see a Tier 2 championship, perhaps make the next step forward, it's going to be a big Saturday afternoon for the people who are supporting that.
Yeah, it's hard to get behind it in the current format. The whole notion that everybody starts off and then we wind back. It's like, it just doesn't make any sense.
I'm not sure about the idea, though, that it's going to sound the death knell for summer club football. I think, as he says there, it's already almost extinct. I think it is extinct. I think who really is playing summer club football? We've seen most of the county championships actually go later this year. Digger
Forum's back to his original Twitter name, so I can't read it out. Rocky IV, training in the mountains is great, but also peak Cold War propaganda. Our Spartan against the doped Drago. Rocky I won an Oscar and was based on an unknown boxer who pushed Muhammad Ali to the limit before being eventually beaten. That's Chuck Wepner was the original Rocky. There's a mediocre enough 30 for 30 about it, which is, look, it's worth your watch. We had him on the show once. Life worked out all right for him. He ended up getting $1 million out of being the inspiration for the movie.
Not bad.
Rumour mill. What have we got for the rumour mill this morning?
So yesterday we were chatting about Marcus Rashford and his potential link with Juventus. Manchester United are going to offer him a new contract to make sure he stays. Isn't it funny how that works out? 24 hours after there's a story out there that a club, or a couple of clubs, want to sign Marcus Rashford, Manchester United are now ready to stump up the cash. 170 grand a week is what they're offering him. And Christian Eriksen, of course, was in the rumour mill yesterday as well. Real Madrid potentially looking to launch a £90 million bid for both him and Marcus Rashford. Spurs are going to stump up with a new contract for Christian Eriksen, he hopes. He's only earning 78 grand a week, which is actually ridiculous. Dele Alli's got a new contract recently where he earns 170 grand a week. But apparently, according to the newspapers this morning, Eriksen isn't actually quite happy with how he's been played by Maurizio Pochettino this year. So there's a financial implication there, and there's also a positional implication. He's not quite happy.
He wants to be the big dog.
He wants to be the big dog. And Manchester City launching a £75 million bid for Frenkie de Jong in January. The Ajax, I guess, midfielder, holding midfielder, central midfielder. Basically, Manchester City see him as a long-term replacement to Fernandinho, but Barcelona are also going to be in the mix for him.
Buy him now, put him on the bench for 2 years, and then he gets graded like 23, 24, 25.
Basically, yeah. Manchester City have been looking to sign somebody in this position for quite a while. They were going very, very interested in Jorginho before he actually decided to sign for Chelsea instead during the summer.
And then the last one is the drunk curlers. This is a story that's been doing the rounds on the internet. Curlers getting drunk.
Let's take you to the Red Deer Curling Classic in Alberta, which is a story we've been covering here for quite some time. So, curling team led by Ryan Fry, who you'll all know as a gold medalist for Canada at the Sochi Games. They had to forfeit their game after fans and opponents complained of broken brooms, damaged locker rooms, and all-round frivolous activities due to being completely wasted, which they were. The Red Deer Curling Training Centre manager Wade Thurber has issued a statement saying that they went out to curl and they were extremely drunk and breaking brooms and swearing and just unacceptable behaviour that nobody wants to watch or hear or listen to, and it was just enough was enough. There was some damage in the locker room and other teams complaining about their stuff being kicked around the locker room. So at the end of the day, it was like, okay, that's enough of this gong show. The committee for the Bonspiel collectively decided that we needed to remove them from the Spiel for this year, and what happens down the road, I'm not sure yet. Ryan Fry has issued an apology as well, sincerely apologising to fans. There is actually a bit of audio, a bit of video we want to bring you here. This was the live feed of the curling championships in Alberta, but somebody was standing really close to the mic and started describing what actually happened during these drunken antics.
Yesterday, they got here about 11 o'clock. They were sitting over there drinking about 30, 40 empty bottles of beer, and they were doing shots. They went out there completely drunk and played, kicking rocks, throwing brooms, got disqualified. Other teams were saying, we do not even want to play here anymore if they are allowed. So they said, Team Cooey disqualified, and they're never allowed to play here again. And Brad Jacobs, Ryan Fry skip, called here to apologize, and apparently there's further discipline against him because Brad doesn't want to lose his sponsors, like Pinty's not. And so, yeah, Ryan Fry might be gone on his team over this. 4 years ago wins a gold medal in the Olympics and now gets too drunk to play. Yeah.
Okay, that is amazing. It's like an episode of Fargo without the murder.
The Guardian have got a great piece in it this morning where they talk about WADA's role in this. Now, last year, alcohol was removed off the anti-doping list. And WADA's argument was that you don't need a lab test to tell whether someone's drunk. And besides, the change affects only the 4 sports: archery, air sports, automobile racing and powerboating, who rigorously, of course, enforce the ban on the understandable grounds that aeroplanes, arrows, speedboats and sports cars don't make great chasers. But curling, it seems, does.
Darren, how are you? Good morning.
How do you follow that, Ger?
You can't. Good luck now.
With great
You're on your own, buddy.
The axe is dangling precariously over the head of Martin O'Neill this morning. That's how you follow it. The former Celtic boss reportedly summoned to a meeting last night to discuss his future with John Delaney and the FAI. O'Neill set to pay the price for Ireland's current plight following the terrible Nations League campaign that saw his side register just 2 points and score 1 goal. The Derry man became the first manager in history of Ireland to oversee a run of 4 games without a goal. The report this morning across a number of publications being carried. The Telegraph, though, a line claiming that John Delaney, alarmed by the fact only 31,000 people attended last week's friendly against Northern Ireland, he hopes to avoid prolonged attacks on the competency of the FAI by changing the management team. The UEFA President Alexander Sheahan says video assistant referees could be used during the knockout round of this season's Champions League. European football's governing body has already announced plans to use VAR in the 2019-2020 season. Serie A, the Bundesliga, Ligue 1, the A-League and the MLS also use video assistant refs. The Premier League will bring it in alongside its goal decision system next season. But speaking at a press conference in Brussels yesterday, Sheahan said at the latest next season also means we have space for earlier implementation. Half of football fans in England have witnessed a racial abuse incident while watching matches, according to Kick It Out. The anti-discrimination group survey also found over 60% of supporters globally would back a points deduction for national or club teams whose fans are found guilty of racism. 7,000 fans across 38 different countries on attitudes towards race inclusion in football were surveyed over the last number of months. 54% say they witnessed racist abuse at a game, with only 28% aware of how to appropriately report such incidents. Well, Leo Cullen says the Ireland job is not on his radar right now. Leinster's Champions Cup winning coach is among those tipped to replace Joe Schmidt should he decide to depart his role after next year's World Cup. Stuart Lancaster, Andy Farrell also thought to be in the running. The English pair have both been name-checked recently by the CEO of the IRFU as potential successors to Schmidt. Cullen keen to keep the former England coach at Leinster for as long as possible. He's quoted today as saying, "I'm very young in my coaching development. I have a lot to learn." Schmidt preparing his team, and he will unveil it for Saturday's final November test against the USA at the Aviva Stadium tomorrow. As far as the players are concerned, he's still the main man. Here's Ian Henderson.
For the time being, Joe is 100% committed to the squad, and if he does decide to move elsewhere, I have no doubt in my mind, right up until the last minute Joe Schmidt is in the job, he will be 100% committed to anything that's happening. But as thoughts of what's happening, I haven't really put any mind to it now.
I'd say they're not talking about anything else. Well, obviously they're talking about the All Blacks until last week, but now the All Blacks game is over. It's like, we should all just go to his room, lock him in, force his hand on the signature, and then write the contract afterwards. Kidnap him, basically. An extraordinary rendition.
It's actually an outstanding idea.
Come on. I mean...
That's very Fargo, Ger.
You got Toner...
That's the most Fargo thing you've ever suggested.
You got Toner, Furlong and Sexton. He's not getting out of that room.
No, it'd also be a great line in his autobiography. So I signed my last Ireland contract at gunpoint.
The Dublin Camogie captain Laura Toomey believes the sport could benefit from rule changes. There have been calls to bring refereeing in line with hurling in the wake of the All-Ireland Camogie final. Both Cork and Kilkenny were constantly blown up for infringements by the ref Eamon Cassidy. He was criticised for his whistle-happy approach to the game. Toomey believes more physicality on a focus on letting the game flow would increase audience and player participation.
If refs are all on the same page, and that's come from the Camogie Association, you know, where there's a real change with regards to physicality, because the conditioning and strength and speed of players, you know, these days is just improving every day, and like the access obviously to resources has helped that. But I definitely think at the moment it's nearly like we're just so restricted that anything you do is pulled up as a free. So the potentially introducing shouldering, but you know, you could also word that in another way, that it's not necessarily a shoulder, but that it allows more physicality into the game, and that there in turn would let the game flow a bit more, like as you've seen the All-Ireland finals, and that we mentioned that they're very stop-starty, and for neutral supporters watching it, like, it can be very frustrating, you know.
Now, she was speaking to John Morley. There'll be more on that story across offtheball.com later today. While Kelly Harrington won a second successive medal at the World Women's Elite World Championships, the Dubliner claimed silver in light welter at the 2016 Worlds, and by guaranteeing at least a bronze, she's become the first Irish boxer to medal at the World Elites at 2 different weight limits. She beat Canadian lightweight Caroline Vare yesterday. Well, fight fans are bracing themselves for a big announcement this week. It's what's being described as the most ambitious crossover since Rocky fought Hulk Hogan Owen Sheahan set to go one-on-one with Tony McGregor. Sheahan and McGregor, neither of whom have ever been beaten in the ring, have traded barbs in the press in recent days, with McGregor describing Sheahan as a mouthy radio star. In an interview with a local Kerry publication, Owen expressed his disdain for Tony and his desire to destroy Tony. There we go, it's on the screen, it must be true.
Ah, sorry. I forgot about that one.
Stick it back up.
I'm just losing track of all that.
The Kerry Kingslayer vows to destroy McGregor's dad in vile local media outburst. I will orphan Tony's kids.
That's the only thing.
That's you, Owen, in a studio, and there's an article.
Yeah, the only thing I have wrong with that, the only thing I can point out is that do local media really refer to them as local media? Well, like would a local newspaper say local media outburst? That's the only thing wrong with that. Other than that, it's flawless.
Well, that's us reporting on your vile outburst in local media.
Tony has responded, we believe, to the vile outburst in local media. The 59-year-old undertaking an intense training camp dubbed Camp Apocalypse right now. Can you care to comment, Owen Sheahan? You're alongside us. What can you tell us about the fight? Everyone is asking.
That's just kind of like a reverse of how the fight is going to go for Tony. Lights on, lights off.
That's our update for today, Ger.
Very good. You got one more? Owen has.
Oh yeah. Dublin Bus have a brand new ambassador. I can't really tee this up any better than this. Just watch this.
Hi, I'm Shay Given, Ireland's greatest saver, and I'm here to talk to you about caps. No, not the 134 caps I earn between the posts. Price caps. Because when you use your Leap card on Dublin Bus, your daily and weekly fares get automatically capped. For adult daily commutes, it's... and for weekly commutes, it's... And that's how you save like Shay. Get these gloves off. Roasting my hands are.
Oh, I'll give you a hand.
Everybody?
Yeah, what? Is there a strap? Is that a strap?
Sorry, do we have a glove, guys?
It's genius, isn't it?
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Oh, that's absolutely glorious. The amount of people who've missed that joke on the internet.
Oh, who think it's like...
Who think it's a legit advertising campaign that is just really badly done.
Yeah, people sometimes don't appreciate the finer things in life.
Yeah. It's the first ad where he goes to meet the agent and he's asking, I won't be doing anything embarrassing, will I? And he's got the big gloves on at the end. It's a really, really clever marketing campaign, and it made me top up my Leap card as soon as I saw it. So it really works.
I do need to top mine up too. Okay, so Creed 2 is in cinemas on Friday week. To celebrate, we've teamed up with Warner Brothers Pictures to give you the chance to win exclusive tickets to a special preview screening on the 28th of November at the Lighthouse Cinema from 6:30 p.m. To be with the chance of winning, send us your favourite Rocky moment from across the franchise. We are accepting Creed and Creed 2. Obviously, you haven't seen Creed 2 yet, but we're accepting Creed. As you mentioned, Creed 2 is released next Friday, November the 30th. And we played you the trailer a little bit earlier on, so you can scroll back on your feed if you haven't seen it. Some suggestions coming in. Probably Rocky 3 or Rocky Balboa. Says tickets there. Moneyball is a great film, but I like that in the same way I like Trading Day, although Moneyball is more authentic.
But somebody just compared Moneyball to Training Day, and you were saying it's not a good sports movie.
Hang on, Trading Day.
Oh, sorry.
Did Space Jam get a mention in Best Sports Movie?
Hang on. Let me finish. And any given Sunday. Baseball movies are the most magical as a group, though. Enda Lynch, how you doing, Enda, says, baseball-wise, it'd only be number 3 behind Bull Durham and The Natural, with Field of Dreams and 8 Men Out picking up numbers 4 and 5. Overall, documentary is Senna, and the movie is Raging Bull. But then the final word on this goes to Gary Caffrey for now. Saying Moneyball is your favourite sports movie is like saying Muse is your favourite band.
That's the most insulting thing that I've ever heard in my life. Take that back about Muse right now.
Hashtag OTB AM.
What about Space Jam? Justice for Space Jam.
Moneyball is beautiful. Space Jam, yes, it's top 10.
But so
is better. Best documentary.
I haven't seen Space Jam. You like Space Jam. Is Space Jam also not crap? Like in the way that...
No. It's a glorious movie about a bunch of really, really famous people coming together from the world of sport to help out some aliens. It's not a movie, but one of the best sporting crossovers and TV crossovers is definitely the Simpsons baseball episode.
With Darryl Strawberry.
With like all of the main baseball players from that era. Like some of the biggest names in baseball all did that episode.
It's pretty good.
It's glorious.
That when The Simpsons was good.
R.I.P. Simpsons.
Yeah.
The Space Jam is a great one to watch with the kids, Jer. If you're struggling for something to throw on.
I know, there's loads of, there's actual good stuff to watch.
Space Jam, you will not regret watching Space Jam.
Yeah, okay.
Like, it's recommended highly from...
If there's a single nightmare off the back of it, you're dead.
Either
Oh,
one.
good
Space Jam is family friendly.
Michael Jordan dunks from the halfway line at the end, so...
Is that have you just ruined the end?
Yes, you have, Owen.
Or is it from the 3-point line?
Okay, enough spoiler alerts for Space Jam. All right, we've got a great piece for you now. Thanks very much for that, Darren. Stephen Hendry has a new book out, and he hopped on the line with Eoin last week to have a chat. It's brilliant. Have a look.
Okay, so Me and the Table is the brand new book from Stephen Hendry. It's out now, and I'm delighted to say that Stephen himself joins us on the line. Stephen, good afternoon to you. How are things?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Very well. So, Me and the Table, it's quite an apt title for this book, I find, reading it, because it is a relationship that you have with a sport, a complicated relationship with the sport. And I often wonder how you do these days, post the height of your professional career, when you've had to, I don't know, perhaps wean yourself away from the table a small bit. How do you cope getting away from that obsession?
Well, I do miss the big occasions. I still miss, competing, playing at the Crucible, playing in the big events. I don't miss the hours and hours of practice on my own that I had to do. But yeah, the title, actually, I thought of it myself while we were actually doing the book, because I realised that basically, for most of my life, it was just me and a snooker table.
Yeah, it's interesting as well when you think about most individual sports people who've made it to the very top of their game, that their relationship with themselves, their own mind, and in your case, the cue and the table, is obviously quite an intimate one. But also, strangely, your relationship with other sports people is far more interesting than a lot of team players. Like the way you talk about rivals throughout your career and during the peak of your career is fascinating. You think quite a lot, from what I can sense from the book, about the minds of your opponents as well as your own mind.
Yeah, snooker at the top level is a highly psychological sport. Sometimes when you get to the final stages of the World Championship, sort of skill and talent kind of goes out the window, and it becomes psychological. It becomes who can play the best under pressure. And for me, playing against other players in finals, you would sense things from them. They would maybe, they would play a bit quicker. They would hit the ball a bit harder. They would, shuffle in their seats. They might sweat a bit more than they normally did. So yeah, it's all about noticing these little things in your opponents.
One of those opponents in particular who comes up quite a bit in the book and who's been a big feature of your career is Steve Davis. I wonder, is it fair to say that you had an obsession with Steve Davis, and in terms of the things that he did, the way he carried himself, his demeanour, the way he played?
Yeah, there's no doubt Steve Davis was a massive influence on my career. From the minute I turned professional, we organised, my manager Ian Doyle organised a 6-night tour of Scotland with him, where I basically got slaughtered every night, but learned so much from the man. And yeah, his targets, his achievements were my targets for my career. So I was kind of obsessed is maybe too strong a word, but certainly it was a massive influence.
Did it help you to have that sort of singular focus, that you could kind of personify the things you wanted to achieve? You could see somebody there who you wanted to emulate?
Very much so. I mean, if you take one thing, 7 world titles, when I won the 7th, to beat Steve's 6, obviously, you kind of think, well, where to now? Because there's no more, no one's won more than that. So you kind of unconsciously take your foot off the pedal, because it's very difficult to find targets that are not false, but kind of artificial, because they're not real. They haven't been set by someone else.
Yeah, so you were almost based on the idea of being the best around, and perhaps the idea of notching up the elusive 8, as it became known, was less significant than outdoing Steve Davis.
Yeah, very much so. I think even after I won the 7th, I think my press conference, I said if I don't win another title, I can't complain about my career. I've had a magnificent career. But so even saying those words means that you're saying to yourself, okay, there's nothing else I can do.
I'm interested in how Steve Davis viewed you at the start. I'm not sure if you've spoken too much about that. Do you think he had respect for you at the very start? Did he know how good you would become?
I don't think, as I say, when we did the 6-night tour of Scotland, I don't think he thought I was going to be a threat in the future. He could, I think he obviously seen I had talent, but whether I could go all the way to win major titles, I don't think he believed that at that time. I didn't actually beat Steve until a couple of years later when I was 18, when I won my first ranking tournament. So I think Possibly when I beat him in my first long frame match. I think it was in the UK Championship, round about I'd be 18 or 19. I think then he probably thought this guy is going to be a pain for me.
When he wasn't really rating you at the start, how did you feel?
How did I feel?
Yeah.
To be honest, I wasn't really looking for respect. I was just trying to like be as good as I could be. I was loving playing snooker. Even at 16, it was because I was so young, the youngest to turn professional. It was still kind of like a hobby, although I was doing it for a living. I still didn't have any idea, what was going to happen in the next 30 years.
Yeah, it's very true. It's kind of all ahead of you. There is this sort of sense that, I don't know, I'm not sure how strong your self-belief was at that time. Did you know that you would go on to, I guess, outdo Steve Davis, become the leader of the sport, the world champion consistently, and the consistent world number one in the 1990s? Of course, there is kind of a sense of a singular focus. You got to focus on the here and the now and each game as it comes, as the cliche goes. But did you kind of view at that time, even in those very early days when Steve Davis was beating you on that tour of Scotland, that you would one day be better than him?
I think when I was 16, I turned professional, and I did an interview with a Scottish newspaper, and I said I'd be world champion at 21. And I believed that. Obviously my father and Eoin, my manager, were pumping these beliefs into me and giving me confidence. But certainly at 16, I had no idea or no belief then that I was going to go on and topple Steve Davis. Because in Scotland there was no history of any snooker players being successful. So there was nothing to sort of back it up what I was saying, but other than the self-belief that I had in myself.
Yeah, what was your father and what was Eoin saying to you at that time to give you that self-confidence?
Well, my dad was, even at the age of 13, 14, was telling people I was going to be world champion.
Right.
He believed in my talent. There was people around Scotland when I used to play junior tournaments and amateur tournaments would say to my dad, "Well, your son's, he's got some talent. He could go a long way." But I think in myself, you don't really think to yourself, "Wow, I'm going to be the best player in the world someday."
Because quite often, what would happen in that situation is that a parent tries to protect their son from that due to the possibility of, say, an ego growing. But it sounds that even from an early age, you sort of had a natural grounding. You didn't quite believe too far ahead of yourself that this thing was going to explode. You still had that humility, but kind of a deep-rooted confidence at the same time.
Yeah, very much so, and I think that's very important for anyone, especially in an individual sport. They want to set out as a career is if you've got a good family, strong family background to keep your feet in the ground, good management. Obviously Ian Doyle was a very influential figure, and he took over not only my career but my life basically. But I was never allowed to get big-headed. Even when I started winning the big prizes, I was never allowed to think I was too big for my boots. I was always kept firmly on the ground.
Did you talk much to your rivals at the time? Did they talk much to you when you started out? Was it very much a person who's on their own? It's a solo sport, so you're going to keep yourself to yourself and not give away anything personality-wise or otherwise behind the curtain, for example?
Well, it was one of the things. Obviously, Eoin had obviously studied Barry Hearn and Steve Davis, and Steve Davis kept himself to himself. So obviously Eoin said, "Well, we're going to go down that route. If we want to be the best, we're going to copy their way of doing things." But on the other side, I mean, I was 16, and most of my peers were like, way older than me, so we didn't have much in common anyway. So yeah, it was pretty much just me, my dad, my manager Eoin, and the guy that was driving me around to the tournaments, because obviously at 16 I couldn't even drive.
Right. So Eoin spotted the fact that Steve Davis, not that he was a recluse, but he sort of kept himself to himself when it came to speaking to his rivals, and basically said, "We'll copy that because this is what the best in the business is doing right now." That's very interesting. It's almost a studying of a successful mechanism and taking the very ideals of it and kind of imposing it on yourself.
Yeah, well, we wanted to take over from Steve and Barry Hearn as the dominant force in snooker. So we kind of like, the idea behind it, I keep going back to the 6-night tour, was to see how they worked, to learn from the best. And yeah, we very much sort of adopted the mantra of keeping yourself away from other players, because especially an individual sport, you want to have some mystique. When the player meets you at the table, it should be the first time he meets you. If you get too familiar and you're going out for dinner, then perhaps they're not, they get too, they're too friendly and they're more comfortable when you meet on the snooker table.
Yeah, and saying that, I'm always interested in someone like you and your view of other sports and how they interact with one another. Like take golf, for example, and they've got quite a camaraderie on a lot of tours, although that's quite different because they don't have the head-to-head nature of snooker for the majority of their season anyway. But say if you take something like tennis, it always seemed on the outside looking in that, say, Nadal and Federer, when they went head-to-head, had quite a good relationship, quite a friendly relationship. But I suspect beyond that, from what we couldn't see, there was something a little bit more insidious there, that there was something more resembling a real rivalry and something close to a hatred between those people. I'm not sure what your take is on that from your experiences of being in a deep rivalry at the very top of sport. Do you buy the idea that two people at the very top of the game can be friends?
No, I don't think so. I think Steve Davis and I will only really become friends near the end of our careers, and obviously now we work together on TV. But in the beginning, no, we were never friends. You would say hello and speak if we had to go to Asia on a tour, or whatever. Obviously, you'd be in the same plane, so you couldn't not speak to somebody. But it was only pleasantries. It wasn't real friendship. But obviously, I lived in Scotland as well, so I would only really see these people at tournaments. I would never see them away from snooker, so that obviously helped as well.
Yeah. When did you realise you were going to become the undisputed king of the sport for quite a prolonged period of time?
I think at 18, when I won that first ranking tournament, the Grand Prix, beating Steve Davis in the quarterfinal, I thought I can go on and win a lot more now. That first major victory sort of proved to yourself that you can do it. Although I didn't win the World Championship for another 3 years, that was the big stepping stone in my career. Because the alteration then is quite significant, going from the pursuer to the pursued. It seemed that you dealt with that very, very easily. Being the winner, being the champion, being the number one was something that you were born to do and that you were very much at ease with. I loved being the best player in the world. It was the greatest, obviously, period of my career. To be the target, I enjoyed that. Down the years of in different sports, you hear people saying, I'm always the target and people always play well against me. It's tough it's tougher to stay at the top, but I just loved it. I thrived on it. Where did you learn that? Did it take time to get used to that, or was it just a natural thing that you were born with? It came naturally. As I say, snooker was the only thing I was ever any good at, and obviously, you don't know how you're going to react until you get to number one. I got to number one at the age of 21, winning the semi-final, and then I went on and won the final of the World Championship, beating Jimmy in 1990. And immediately, I just, the next season, you're being introduced as the world number one, the world champion. And as I say, I just thrived in it. It gave me a tremendous buzz and made me want to win even more. You don't know, you say there, you don't know how you're going to react to being number one. It went quite well for you. You don't know how other people are going to react to you when you become the champ either. Talk to us about Alex Higgins and how your relationship with him changed after you ended up becoming the best. Well, when I turned professional at 16, Alex Higgins was brilliant to me. He would all the time at tournaments, summon me to the practice table and give, I'd practice with him for an hour or two, and he'd obviously play with one of the geniuses of the game, and it would be for a 16-year-old. It was just amazing from from Scotland playing an amateur game to all of a sudden you're practicing with one of the biggest names in snooker. It was incredible. But then when I started to win more tournaments, I started to become the enemy where Alex was concerned. He obviously was at that time was the enemy with Steve Davis, because Steve Davis was winning everything. Because obviously Alex was the people's champion. Although he didn't win as many tournaments, he believed that he was almost bigger than snooker. So for someone else to win everything, and the attention was kind of taken away from Alex, he didn't like that. Did he ever say anything to you that suggested that? Did he manage to keep his, I guess, not his dislike for you, but his dislike for your position in terms of you being the best? Did he manage to keep that under wraps, or was it quite obvious that things have gone a little bit cold? Oh yeah, I mean there was never anything subtle about Alex Higgins. You would know if he didn't like you would know about it. So whether it's saying things in the press or saying things to someone that he knows that would get back to you, or even matches, as I say in the book, matches when he'd shake your hand and abuse you, say things that obviously I can't say in this radio show. It was never subtle. Do you now sympathise with Alex Higgins' view at that point? I guess you could sympathise with it a few years ago. The idea that perhaps the grip on the sport was loosened from his perspective. There was a hotshot kid. I'm sure that was probably how he viewed you coming along and becoming the greatest in the sport. Can you sympathise with his view there? Was it hard for you to sort of view that from nearing the end of your career? Well, I mean, it was only one way. I mean, I had no animosity towards Alex at all. So I mean, later on in my career, I met Alex 2 or 3 times, and we were fine. We would chat, and I went to his funeral, which was obviously a very sad occasion, but incredible how he was. The funeral, how the people came out from. It was amazing. So yeah, I mean, I've got enormous sympathy for Alex. Throughout his career, the problems he had.
Yeah. You mentioned the funeral there. You mentioned in the book about that funeral and a lack of attendance from current players, from more contemporary players at that funeral. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was very disappointed because I think without Alex Higgins, I don't think snooker would have got as quickly where it was, because he changed the face of snooker when he went on TV the first time. Before, you had the likes of the Reardons, the Mountjoys, the Griffithses, the Dennis Taylors, who were all great players in their time, but they were pretty boring to watch. And then Alex came on. It was a breath of fresh air, and he got the public into snooker, a younger audience. So I think without him, snooker might not have been where it is today. Yeah, for sure. I'd agree with you there. One other thing I wanted to ask you about in terms of the 90s, in terms of your period of dominance, it's one thing scaling the mountain, but I would often say it's a much harder thing to actually stay there, to actually keep that hunger. You mentioned the personification of Steve Davis's 6 as a thing to actually guide you home and to keep that hunger up. Was there anything else? Was there anything about your personality that changed when you got to the summit that helped you to stay there? I just love winning. I just love winning. It was just, sometimes I would win a tournament on a Sunday night and be practicing again the Monday morning for the next one. I was greedy for success, and I never ever settled. There's been lots of players in snooker down the years where they win one ranking tournament and you'll never hear from them again, because that's what they've set out to do, and they've won it, and then they're comfortable with just being a top player. I wouldn't be comfortable with that. I want to be the best. And it was probably the reason why the downfall was so hard, because I'd obviously had so much success. We'll talk about that downfall in just a moment. I just wanted to ask you about that relationship with winning. And you say there, I love winning. Is it the process of just winning a game of snooker, or is it the process of being the best in the world? Like, can you still get that buzz today playing events that aren't the World Championships and winning events that aren't the World Championships? Or did it have to be the best in the world? Did it have to be this huge event that everybody in the world is watching for you to get that full drug of adrenaline from this winning sensation? Yeah. When I was world number one, it was about proving why I was world number one. So it was about winning the big events, winning the Triple Crown events, the Masters, the UK, the World Championship, winning those over and over again to prove that I was miles in front of the other players. That's what pushed me on to keep winning. When did you realise that your game had, to a certain extent, deserted you? I don't want to say your game, maybe mental elements of the game were starting to show a few cracks. And how tough was that? Well, I mean, round about sort of 10, 12 years before, round about 2000, I started, playing shots. I had this weird feeling in my arm where I wasn't going through the ball properly, and obviously the term yips I've used in the book, and it's a term I don't like, but it's the only word that anyone's ever used for it. So I would play the odd shot, like I wouldn't play it properly, and I would feel horrible, and I'd think about that didn't feel nice, and then all of a sudden you would avoid playing that single shot again in case it happened again, and then it would creep into other shots, and until gradually by the end of it, it was like there was so many shots that I just didn't feel I could play properly, and so that when you couldn't play properly, then you start losing to people you shouldn't lose to, then your confidence goes, then the enjoyment and looking forward to competing just disappears. Yeah, I would imagine, I've never experienced it, but I'd imagine it's an incredibly hard thing to describe. I've seen somebody describe the golf yips. I know you hate the word yips, but unfortunately we're kind of stuck for vocabulary here around this. But I've seen someone describe it as other people, what we would know it as a psychological issue, but what you as a professional sportsman would know as a neurological issue, that there's very little you can do in terms of changing your mindset to stop this deterioration from happening. Yeah, I mean, it starts off, with a physical thing of playing the shot wrongly. You kind of decelerate when you go through the cue ball. Your right hand tightens a little bit. But then as soon as it's happened once, and because you're avoiding playing that shot again, then it becomes psychological. Then you can't get rid of it because it's in there. So then you would play like kind of shots to avoid playing certain shots. So then your whole game is based around playing a way that you're not comfortable playing. I'd imagine there's just a general feeling of helplessness around that era when you just can't do anything about this. Yeah, very much so. Very much so. It's you're sitting in your chair and basically, when Tom, who ghost wrote my book, I basically said to him, I says, how would you like to write a book without using a certain letter, say an S or an A? It's like the same as that. It's like not being able to play certain shots for me was just it was very debilitating.
How's your game at the moment? Do you still feel that on a day-to-day basis when you take to the table? Does it still hold you back?
Well, I hardly play anymore. If I've got an exhibition, I'll maybe go in and play maybe 3 or 4 days for an hour or something like that. I can still play to obviously a decent standard. When I'm practicing on my own, everything's great. But yeah, I mean, it's still, even when I get on a table on exhibition, there'll be certain shots where the breaks will go on and I won't be able to play it properly.
Yeah, like you mentioned in the book as well, a story about your cue breaking in 2003, which was widely reported at the time as well. Like, there's little mental elements throughout your career that I don't want to say contributed to it, but I'd imagine, say, something like your cue going missing or getting broken, in 2003 was a hugely significant mental barrier for you to overcome, and that this was the latest one in 2012. Did you have that belief that you might have finally overcome it?
No, not really, to be honest. I mean, obviously the cue, my original cue that I won all 7 world titles, that getting broken was a huge event, obviously, in my career to have to adapt to new cues. I mean, I tried probably half a dozen before I ended up with the cue I finished my career with. So yeah, I mean, for a snooker professional, a cue is such an important thing. It's not like tennis where they walk out with half a dozen rackets and they're all exactly the same. Having that cue that suits you is so important.
Yeah, for sure. Stephen Hendry, it's been great chatting to you. The book is called Me and the Table, and it's absolutely brilliant. Congratulations on it, and thanks a million for your time.
Thanks very much.
What happened to the cue?
It was in his luggage and it broke. Simple as that. Got it back from the airport, opened it up, and it was sliced perfectly. They couldn't fix it. They tried to it was every cue is handcrafted, he says. So it's almost like a wand in Harry Potter. Once you break your wand, you're doomed, and that was the same with his snooker cue. Doomed is probably a bit strong, because he kind of had a period of being okay, obviously, this century, nowhere near the 90s, but that was more to do with perhaps just kind of a deterioration due to age or something like that as well. But the cue was definitely a contributing factor. He just felt it was completely alien to him, everything. But a game of that sensitivity, like a cue change like that, is a drastic change.
Is that not a bit mad? Is that not like Samson and the hare? Surely they can precision engineer the exact same cue.
Apparently not.
Same weight.
Apparently not. Like, it was the feel of it as well. It was the exact texture, the exact shape of it, the exact weight of it. Just nothing was doing after that.
So all the money in the world and all the engineers and all the people couldn't put Humpty together again.
Yeah.
Wow, that is mad.
That is where the poem came from. Humpty Dumpty didn't exist before 2003.
That full interview is up on youtube.com/off the ball, as well as all the rest of our best stuff as well, straight after the show. Now, I want to bring you some more rugby. There is an Ireland match this weekend. We're playing the USA, and it's going to be not our first choice team. And everybody who is up in front of the media this week knows a little bit about the fact that they're not first choice. But these are the games where they get the opportunity to say, even after the Lord Mayor's show of beating the best team in the world and a packed heaving Aviva last weekend, we get the opportunity to stake our claim. I think Niall Scannell has a very good chance of making the bench for the big games and potentially for starting some of the bigger games in the World Cup if he manages to maintain form and fitness. Here he is talking about Peter O'Mahony. He's speaking with our own Will O'Callaghan.
I don't know will I be in trouble for saying that or not, but he was certainly outstanding at the weekend against New Zealand, and I think he's been absolutely outstanding for Munster as well. And I think, probably since the Lions, he's really pushed his game on, and I think that's natural. I think a lot of lads would have that reaction to a Lions tour. Pete hasn't spoken to me personally about that or anything, but I'm sure you see other guys and how they do things, and he's just always looking for any little edge he can get anyway. But he was obviously outstanding the last day. I don't know if he's playing the rugby of his life or not. He could probably only tell you that, but I certainly think he's been hugely impressive this year. And obviously for me, having him in my club, it's brilliant to see. Likewise with Tig and stuff, to see those guys that are really playing unbelievable rugby at the moment and really pushing the boundaries is great, because that's what we need obviously as a club. And in here, he's the exact same. So
should we give everybody 6 months off? Just come back in 6 months, lads. No? Right now? Screw everything else. Screw the Six Nations. Screw the European Cup this year. we'll have amazing depth after that 6 months. But like literally everybody who's in that squad and 3 or 4 others, see you in 6 months. Off you go. Thailand, Australia, the Everest Base Camp. Do whatever you want. Maybe not Everest Base Camp. We want all your fingers and toes.
It's definitely one of the more intriguing ideas I've heard about winning the World Cup. The thing is, we don't actually get that long of an off-season. Once, like you'd suspect, Leinster will be playing late-ish into May, Pro 14 final. Then they have to get to their off-season pretty quickly because pre-season is of vital importance next year, obviously. Because you go straight
if you
into
screw that up, everything's screwed up. So many little fragile things.
Maybe it's better if no Irish province qualifies for any of those finals.
Yeah, which might happen if you give everybody 6 months off.
Yeah, start tanking.
Stuart McCluskey, we'll talk about tanking in a minute. Stuart McCluskey on Sexton versus Barrett. Here he is, obviously doing press. McCluskey probably going to start this weekend. You would expect maybe that's the point of putting him in front of the media. I'm sure he's hoping that anyway. Here he is talking about the World Player of the Year vote, which we'll know soon enough.
They're very different players, I think. I think Johnny runs a game. Oh, this is just me looking from the outside, but I think Johnny runs the game really well, gets the team moving a lot better than Boone Barrett does. Boone Barrett you put him a bit of space, the pace. He's obviously got a lot more flair, I think, but I think Johnny sort of manages the team better, in my opinion.
There you go. Yeah, very straightforward. All right, so let's move on. I mean, it's the biggest sporting event in the world, right? This weekend, everybody knows about this, right? Everybody knows about this.
Yeah.
We're on the edge of our seat. What are we talking about?
Phil Mickelson versus Tiger Woods this week. I'm sure you've got your pay-per-view sorted.
$29.99, $20 is it?
Yeah, but you can't actually go and watch it. I want to talk about this because you're the host of Off the Balls Dadcast, or it's not Off the Balls, the Dadcast, which is available on all good platforms. Well, you'll relate with it. Phil versus Tiger is the meeting of the two biggest dads that has ever existed. The worst trash talk, the worst attempts at trying to be cool and hip to sell an online pay-per-view I have ever seen in my entire life. Let's remind people of their first Twitter exchange when this thing was announced. Phil Mickelson
real.
at Tiger Woods. I bet you think this is the easiest $9 million you will ever make. Tiger Woods.
Crying emoji.
Think you will earn some bragging rights? Phil Mickelson doesn't kind of take it any further. Let's do this, thumbs up. Think you will earn some bragging rights, mister? Well, you're not going to earn any bragging rights against me. There is a Bleacher Report press conference this week where they spoke about intensifying things. You know the way in WWE when somebody's like, I will retire if you take my SmackDown title off me? Well, God, Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods have taken it up another notch. Have a look at this.
In fact, I'm willing to risk $100,000 that says I birdie the first hole. So that's how good I feel heading into this match. You don't have to take it. You don't have to take it at all. But I'm going to throw that out there.
Hold on. So you think you can make birdie on the first hole?
I know I'm going to make birdie on the first hole.
Double it.
Did you see how I baited him like that? Yes. Yes. 200 says I birdie the first hole.
All right, just water down the left. He likes to lose his golf ball to the left. It's a little flare out that he hits.
See, here's what you're missing.
See, these are
I'm going to hit a 2-iron.
He hasn't really thought
in
about.
the fairway, and I'm a great short iron player. In fact, one of the best. In fact, number one on the tour stats.
Hot,
you like
sometimes does. It's a little right. And it's hot. It'll be up against that tree, and he's blocked out, and so he can't spin the ball coming into that flag. Yeah,
and that's how I was able to bait you.
Bait like, Kerry bait. That's how I bet. That's how I bet the Tiger.
Now, that one isn't too bad. That's just like a really miserable attempt at trash talk. But the most dad, Phil Mickelson, the most dad sports person we've ever seen happened on Pardon the Interruption on ESPN yesterday afternoon. Let's have a listen to this. This is Phil Mickelson speaking.
The FOMO is real. All right. The fear of missing out that you're experiencing right now, it's real. You will be missing out on banter, on course challenges, on smack talk, on things that you don't ever get to see on a telecast because we're mic'd up. So don't let FOMO get the better of you. Watch.
Speaking like a man who's just found out what FOMO stands for and wants to use it at every available opportunity. He's going backwards. He is the Benjamin Button of social standards. He is now a millennial. He's a youth, Phil.
Counter-argument to all of this is actually Tiger really believed that about Phil's game. He believes that he's flaky under pressure, right? Wouldn't it be great if in the real world instead of there being decorum on the 18th tee, like in a real match, if they were playing a tournament. He was like, oh, there's water down the left there, Phil. Got that issue. Ball kind of leaks out a little bit to the left. Don't worry about it, I can hit 2 iron. Ooh, sometimes someone can just get out to the right there. There's fairly serious rough. Wouldn't that make golf good?
It would, and mic everybody up.
Wouldn't everybody watch that?
Well, that's why the Ryder Cup is the best time of every second year, is that golf people tend to become less golf people. They tend to get a little bit rougher around the edges. They tend to forget about the fundamentals of etiquette, and it's when it becomes this beautiful thing.
So maybe this is the future of golf. On the face of it, it's ludicrous, it's ridiculous, it's a bit disgusting. All the stuff that everybody has said about it is fairly true. It's like 2 of the richest sports people in the world getting richer on a pay-per-view. It's kind of everything that's wrong with modern sport, right? But maybe, accidentally, by stripping away the veneer of politeness and bullshit that surrounds golf, maybe what they've actually done is uncovered the future, where it's like, why don't we just tell the truth about our own characters and who we are? Why don't we be ourselves? Let Tiger be Tiger, really. Let Phil be Phil. I think Tiger would have actually won about 10 more majors if he was allowed to trash talk his opponents in a way that he clearly wants to do. Because I don't think Tiger is an actor. I don't think he was faking. I think that was legit. I think that he's like... It's also a stupid bet. It's not even like, I make birdie...
jeopardy for Tiger there at all. No. Again, it was just trying...
Well, the jeopardy is Phil makes the bet.
And then Tiger loses 200 grand.
But like 200 grand of the 9 million that he's earning.
I would love to see the social experiment, which would be put Vince McMahon in charge of the PGA Tour. And instruct all the galleries, instruct all the players, we're playing by my rules now. World Wrestling Federation rules in the Professional Golf Association.
Loads of people just talking on the microphones.
Yeah. Before you get on the first tee, you speak down to your opponent. You call them every name under the sun. You get inside their skin, and then they tee off. You let the fans do what they want. I could see Justin Thomas crying off before he even completes his first backswing.
I mean, they could probably do an end-of-season swing and see how it goes. Like a Florida swing before the real Florida swing. Not that hard to organise, Owen.
No?
I think you might have stumbled on something here.
Well, I've patented it.
How do we make this happen?
You've
given all the money to Vince McMahon, who already has all the money.
Yeah, that's true. We could just do it for like Irish golfers ourselves and just take that product, have something ready to go and say, this is how we do things here.
The wind howls in off the Atlantic.
Sorry, I can't hear you there. What are you calling me?
What? So thanks to the PGA Tour for that video as well. You can get more information on pgatour.com. It's $19.99. A suggested retail price of $19.99. I don't know what that means. I don't know. Is it like you pay how much you want? But certainly that's on the PGA Tour website. They're saying it's $19.99. So there you go. Are you going to watch? Are you going to buy it?
Probably not going to buy it. If I happen to stumble upon it online somewhere, I might put my eyes upon it for sure.
The winner's going to walk away with $9 million. Both players have said they'll donate the winnings to charity. So there you go. Everybody's a winner, right?
Is Phil going to donate his 200 grand to charity?
No, that's walking around money.
Yeah.
Where did the $500 he tips everybody come from? Tiger's back pocket. Right. One last thing that we want to talk about was the Cleveland Cavaliers being the worst team in basketball.
Very briefly, J.R. Smith has publicly accused the Cavs of tanking, which isn't something you can do. You're not allowed to do that. Accuse a team of actually deliberately going out to lose games.
Who's J.R. Smith?
J.R. Smith is known as the guy. You probably know J.R. Smith for 2 reasons. He was the guy who didn't put his top back on after he took it off after the Cavs beat Golden State after going from 3-1 down in the 2016 NBA Finals. Just walked around Ohio for weeks, just topless. Or you'll know him as the guy who LeBron got extremely pissed off at last year in Game 3 or 4 of the NBA Finals, when J.R. Smith forgot that Cavs were losing the game. They had possession with a few seconds left, and the buzzer went, and it went to overtime, so they were tied, and they ended up losing the game eventually. So he's a bit of a cult hero for that. He's one of the best shooters in the league, to be fair, or was one of the best shooters. He's getting on a bit now, and naturally after LeBron left Cleveland in the summer to go to the Lakers, Cleveland are terrible. They are the worst team in the NBA, and now J.R. Smith has come out publicly and saying, I don't want to play on a team that's tanking. And the Cavs are like, well, if you're saying we're tanking, we don't want to be with you anymore either. So he's looking for a new franchise. He's one of those people, kind of like Lance Stevenson with the Lakers, who's just, as I say, a cult hero who everybody loves for his personality, more than a kind of underrated set of skills that he actually possesses. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up.
Could he end up back with LeBron?
That would be hilarious. I don't think so somehow. I would be very surprised if LeBron would look at J.R. Smith and say to himself, yeah, that's the type of guy I want to play with again. Like you saw LeBron's face. You know the iconic meme with the two hands. Like, what are you doing? That's the emotion that J.R. Smith brings out in LeBron James. I don't think he wants to revisit that.
That one time. Maybe this is like there's a second act in their lives.
Maybe there is. They're good friends. Well, I'm not sure they're still good friends after that, but LeBron was instrumental in bringing him from New York to Cleveland when he joined them in the first place. So maybe we could rekindle that friendship. It would certainly lead to a lot more fun in Los Angeles.
All right, that's pretty much all we got time for. Just time to tell you that our competition winners are... I'm going to scroll back up here. Sorry, I've just deleted it. Our competition winners are Wayne Ryan. This is for tickets to see Creed 2 in the Lighthouse Cinema next week, courtesy of Warner Brothers Pictures for the special preview screening on the 28th of November in the Lighthouse Cinema. Wayne Ryan, Sandra N on Twitter, Joe O'Neill, Sean Burke and Darren Butler. Congratulations, you've all won a pair of tickets. That is all from us this morning on OTBAM. Wednesday Night Rugby is Keith Wood and Matt Williams. Jason Black, the Donegal adventurer who conquered the world's most dangerous mountain, K2, in July. K2 is the backdrop to all of the best documentaries that you've ever seen about climbing. It's absolutely perilous. So for somebody to have made it back down alive, frequently people make it up and then don't make it down alive. They're like, oh look, I've achieved the thing I've spent all my entire life trying to do, and then they die on the way down. But he has managed to survive up and down. A reminder, of course, OTBAM is live at screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow morning for 7:45. Alan Quinlan live in studio. Graham Hunter is going to discuss his new Barcelona feature film, Take the Ball, Pass the Ball. There is a screening of that happening in Liberty Hall on Sunday evening. There's going to be a Q&A with Graham and the director either before or after that. You can get your tickets for that on Eventbrite, and you check in social media as well. Con Artists are the guys behind that, and they're organising it, and Graham has tweeted about it as well. So that's pretty much all we've got time for.
Thank you.
It's good stuff with...
Was I supposed to say thank you there?
With Tony McGregor. It's like, it's ratcheted up a new one.
It's always ratcheting up in our fiery relationship.
Lights off.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Good luck.
OTB AM.
Thanks to screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.